saw the last Happy Hour game dev, you got to see Calyx working in FlowGraph. It's not a finished, a final approved system or whatnot. It was something that he was exploring at that time. We do that quite often. There's lots of little systems that we start to work on, you know, and in a vacuum they may work, but when you have to put them into the game with the 200 other systems, the 300 other systems, you know, they may cause all kinds of trouble and stuff. So no progress on that at this time.
Well, although just to also start commenting on that, because I know he, even when he popped on, was it Baron's stream on Wednesday for a few minutes, he mentioned he's working on the interaction systems, and so he's definitely still working on things.
If you know what's good for you,
but
you'll stay out of this.
It's just making sure that whatever we build, you can build a really crazy prototype that makes any multiplayer server you run it on collapse.
Yeah.
And so it's just making sure that it's always viable, it's always
Take your jobs a lot more seriously than I
stable,
would have thought.
or just the crazy scope.
System activation. Shield system.
I actually know the answer to this one. Will it be different from flying within atmosphere?
Simple answer is no.
Big mistake.
What happens when you break off a wing, say, because you fire these squibs, it distorts the UV2s and creates an alpha channel, so you get kind of an uneven surface. And then we fire some special effects. That's the current state of your.
You had your chance to run.
That's not going to
You
change
didn't.
the atmosphere other than
System
gravity
managed.
and turbulence. So the physics will change.
Weapons do have different weapon effects when they hit. Like a bullet will tear through the metal a bit more than say a laser will burn through the paint, but not actually tear through the metal, so maybe there's something
You messed up now, Scav.
We're going to be working on the Degree 2.0. And what that means is we're probably going to take more into account the torque. Like ammo hits at a certain vector, and that'll start to shear off the wing, and it'll be more physically active. Right now we give an impulse to the debris, and it doesn't really matter where we shot it from. It randomly sort of pops off from this cone that we established.
Throwing down against nine tails is never a good idea.
Yeah.
I'm gonna show you why.
What? Did Disco Lando do anything in honor of Billy Clinton's birthday? Yeah, it's like set up a shrine in the house with little candles. No, I just said.
You're dead.
Mix that in
You
there.
should have set up the shrine there.
Next question. How do you plan to let ramps and loading zones, especially the ones that compare to work in rough terrain?
Oh, that's interesting. This is a Calyx question. He did it for prototypes for variable terrain, where so we have the idea of springy landing gear, and along with that system, it's going to take into account the cargo doors and whatnot. So you know, yeah, we're thinking hard about uneven terrain and how that would actually work. And we want to keep the ship basically level. But the landing gears and things are going to fall into crevices, and the door is going to open, and the ladder is going to open to a certain amount.
Chances are you're not going to see the final implementation of whatever that is.
It's under a law.
Yeah, it presents just immediately a lot of challenges because for tracking the balance of the ship, especially if we get to larger and larger ships. Now for something smaller, yeah, you'll probably have better luck because you're also going to probably find something that's almost more inherently flat to the shape of your ship. But yeah, like if you start getting to, say you're bringing a Caterpillar down, even with any different landing gear compression, there's only so far below those landing gears will still extend, and so you'll still need to find as big, clear, and flat of a track as possible, but you won't get screwed over by there being a little bit of variation in that, so.
It'll be something you'll have to consider when picking your landing spots.
Exactly, yeah.
So,
Hey,
Any
Jenny,
information
think you can
on
head on
potential
back and whip us
paths
up
on
a
the
cup of
gray
something
cat
hot? I'm
buggy,
about to
additional
pass
bomb
out.
states, etc.
Got a
People are
contact.
going to load up
Multiples.
their gray cat buggy.
Let's see what the registers say. Not
You
coming
guys
up.
have damage states for you.
Forget the drink.
Called
I need
Delta
you on
for a
shield
dragonfly.
now.
With the Drake sale ongoing now.
Well, definitely we need GT2s at the very least.
Hello and welcome
Oh,
aboard
they
your
don't
Drake
currently.
interplanetary
Right,
shuttle.
that's
Some
what I
of the
mean.
old style
Systems
damage,
are online.
if anything, I don't know if anything falls off. Just hit.
Yeah, that's what I don't think it like breaks
so
apart.
small.
Yeah, I don't think it
It
breaks
just
apart.
kind
in a
of
particular way.
explodes. Yeah, in a fireball.
That's how it works. That's how it works in hardcore.
Doesn't mean I can't burn and melt through it, but I don't think there'd be
Yeah.
much sort of like interesting geo to actually fly off it. But I mean, what, UV2s and then set that up, change damage shader and get that activated.
Yeah,
blah,
we-
blah, 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 blah. You know?
We would need to steal an artist or do it ourselves where we put the internals into a structure so once you kind of conceive into the body, you can see something.
That's part of the thing you come across is a lot of the older ships when we were doing damage conversions, they didn't have really much space between the exterior and the interior, so you couldn't really fit cool mechanical structures between the body. You couldn't even fit sometimes like a plane that shows the sort of damaged palm. So as these ships are being redesigned for these damage systems, all that stuff. So maybe it'd be great.
Well, as of right now, you can't actually spawn a gray cat in your system universe. So I think that has to come first.
Right,
so
right, right. Baby steps,
Until
one
somebody
step at a
else does
time.
that, you don't have to worry about it.
All right.
Let's see. For Pat and Matt S., can you walk us through the critical chain reaction ship destruction? What is the goal for how that would work mechanically and visually?
Okay.
I guess for like an
So
alpha
the full systemic damage system. I kind of put a list together at the beginning of the year of what we wanted to achieve for damage.
you busy?
And talked to
question.
Design about this.
They sound serious,
So
right?
first off, we want the dogfighting experience to be really good. Where you have indication of where you're getting hit from and effects going off in the interior, and you kind of get the warning that you're about to
It's
go
coming from
critical,
these
and you have some time to
You should help if you can.
get out of your seat and start to repair things. We're going to add radial damage to missiles, and the difficulty there is a zone inside the ship and a zone in space, and the radial damage has to affect interior components in order to hurt them. So once that is established, we will add damage to the interior components. They'll have their own radiuses, which they influence also if they explode, and they can also send feedback on the pipes, and pipes will expend heat, and then your overall ship performance will decrease based on these factors, and if enough critical systems explode, you'll achieve a ship destruction. But we do want to allow for the possibility you could break a ship in half without blowing it up. So if you start to shoot the hull
If
and
you
you're
know
not
what's
hitting
good
the
for you,
critical system,
you'll
you could
stay
probably
out of this.
snap it in half.
And also, a lot of that is going to play into where the different components move inside of the ship.
Running you know I find it.
Almost redundant setup where it would have power plant and cooler inside the same house on separate sides of the ship. So yeah, you've shown off one half of the ship, but it still has
Thank
all
you
the
for helping me.
components where you
Maybe
keep flying
someday
even if
I'll
the
be
other
able to
half
return the
is
favor.
critical. Whereas something that say it has two power plants but they're right next to each other, and then one of those power plants takes critical damage, it detonates, it does an explosion radius. Well, it's right next to the second power plant, so even though that power plant isn't taking any damage, if
Space.
the first power plant critical is harder than
Quantum
to try and
drive
create
is
some
now
more systemically occurring events for this kind of how you critically damage and blow up a ship isn't how you critically damage and blow up every single ship. So it's, oh, I've got this one gameplay routine down set, so I've got that down set for the Hornet or for the Constellation, but I'm still learning for all these other ships.
older ships quite a bit.
Yeah, and that's definitely one of the goals where it's, especially once we get some of the Shield 2.0, Vitamin 2.0 in, there's a lot that will be going on with that where even just your basic Shield operator guy is going to have a lot to do in terms of just doubling or tripling the longevity of your ship right then being dedicated to that role. But then, like Matt was saying, if one of those components gets fried and you've still got someone else on the ship, they may be the one running back. It's like, okay, shield generator 2 is broken, find that panel, open that up, there's the broken fuse, grab the replacement, get that stuff in, power cycle that shield generator, and right, it's not going to take too long before you take it.
And then beyond that, if you think about a ship as a derelict, you might find a space that's going to be pre-damaged, you're going to come across it, you might harvest it for components, you might strip the metals to store the alloy to create other things, or you might be able to repair that ship and fly it out. All these, from dogfighting to destruction to post-destruction and being derelict, this whole lifespan of the ship.
They're just talking, and I just see like explosions rippling down a ship and particles flying and stuff. I totally what?
Half the players,
where are we going?
Half the players trying to see your work, the other half of the players trying not to see your work.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. Let's see. Matt doesn't say which one. So, what is your favoritist source of inspiration for ships that you're designing?
Okay. Favorite source.
Favoritist source.
Starship Troopers.
I actually really love Aliens. I mean, that's always been my, just the Alien franchise has been one of my long-time favorite sci-fi IPs. Giant dropship. So, and while the Nostromo is amazing, it's like, okay, that is just the one ship today. But then just where they took it from the Aliens and then built the expanded universe of it, because all the other weird ships that never get shown or mentioned once on any of the movies. But it's just a really cool aesthetic to them, where it's like, yes, this is bare bones with this space.
You might be the only one old enough to know. Did you see a series of books by Stuart Crawley? It was called Space 2000. There was the Terran Trade Association, Confederation. There was all books published in the late 70s. It was all just crazy LSD spaceship art. And I used to sit in the library, 7 years old, 8 years old, just sit in the library just looking at these LSD spaceships that were every color of the rainbow.
I was an Asimov guy, so.
I still have those books.
All 3 rules of robots are wrong.
Stuart Crawley books. Look them up.
Don't allow my guy.
It's crazy stuff. All right, next question. Are you planning to apply parallax occlusion mapping to the underlying components of a damaged ship?
There we do.
Oh.
Yep, already done. Did it, basically, there's 2 parts to the underlying geo. So you've got the exterior of the surface of the ship, and then you've got either damaged palms, which are the parallax occlusion maps, and those are a single plane that look like 3D geo due to how the textures are. And then you've got the actual geometry where you have space. So if the wing is actually thick enough to have, say, the skeletal ribbing as you go through, and then you have a palm under that. That way, when you shoot the ship, you can still see through it. But yeah, we combine both techniques with that. So we got palms all over the ship to do your rivets and your insets and all sorts of cool stuff that we don't have to carve into the geo. And then we use it for the damage too, because why not? It looks awesome, and it actually simplifies the process because you don't have to model a full set of geo to have a, it looks like geo at a glance. It's all extruded looking and such. So it's great tech.
I wish we could actually model the full ribbing of a ship, like build it like,
Me too.
as like you'd see it in a real construction of a spaceship, but it's too expensive to draw all that when you're not seeing it.
Yeah. All right. A lot of people are complimenting the hell out of your beard.
Oh, really?
Which one?
I don't know.
There's
just,
3 of us.
Thanks.
Probably
Tyler
every-
Wickett is feeding me the
Maybe
questions
we
here.
combine our beards together.
I don't know. This is my 3.0 beard. I'm not sure.
Launch complete.
So, we'll
Landing
see how that goes.
raised.
Let's see. That wasn't a question. In fiction, Matt Sherman, if you had to describe working for Drake in one word, what would it be? That's because of the ATV summit yesterday. You were Matt S. Drake, ship designer. What's it like working for Drake?
Restraint.
Ooh.
Quantum
He
travel
asked for one.
engaged.
They did ask for one word. All right. What determinations are made in deciding where to draw the line on ship destructibility, taking into account balancing the visual spectacle against...
Quantum travel
It's pretty much
just
what it is.
The biggest consideration is how the interiors will eventually be split. We can't just split at any point or create holes in the hull. We have to think about, eventually, when we split the ship, we're not going to disappear the interior, which is kind of a cheat right now to get around physics issues that we currently have. Like, what we want to do is big capital ship, break it in half. If this has the gravity generator and power, it should still have gravity where this will lose gravity. But right now, it's all one big physics grid for a ship. So Chris Rain is going to be working on multi-physics grids per ship.
Yeah, and then anything you think, you obviously think about performance-wise, but you also think, that's probably going to blow off. You look at a piece and it structurally doesn't look like it's going to take a huge cane around. At some point, that piece is going to tear off. So we try and pick and choose pieces that'll and add to gameplay too. Like that's the first thing to say, like intakes, right? When I'm breaking things off for say Matt Sherman. So we'll break off intakes, break off wings, we'll see how that affects how it plays, and then I'll be like, well, what's left? Is there anything cool? There's only a few pieces breaking off, anything aesthetically appealing, easily detachable, that's not gonna overload anyone's computers, so that's kind of my process.
And one of the features I'm asking for is especially on the big capital ships where you're gonna have multiple layers of rooms and they may not line up perfectly on a bulkhead. We wanna have the ability to swap the interior for say a split room version. So imagine the Titanic breaking apart and you see a bit of a room with some mess coming out and people falling out and screams and smoke and fire and all this stuff. So that's kind of where I'd like to head.
I'd like to see that in atmosphere. It's having an effect. All right. What new tech coming online for ships excites you?
It's like, well, we can't do that until we get this 2.0. Can't do that until we get 2.0. It's just all the knockdown effects that it's going to bring.
Damn it! Why does everybody have to fight back?
Our items on the checklist, but once we have that, then we can really start checking a lot of this stuff off.
And to this point, we've been building ships using modified default CryEngine, or I should say lumberyard. But now with the item 2.0, it's really how we've always wanted to build the ships, where the ship itself can communicate and it's networked and it's got proper optimization. So I'm most excited about finally getting there, and it's really happening right now.
I think they talked up all the features. Personally, I like lights. I think they look cool, and I can't wait till we can connect them all and have all the different states for just all sorts of cool stuff. Because I think it's really the visuals, what's going on, how the world feeds back to you as the player that really pulls me in anyway.
I've talked to you a lot about lights, and about having external lights. That, like searchlights that you go through an asteroid field and have to be able to have a light that you can, that when you're doing search and rescue, looking for a ship.
About that too.
That's the kind of thing that I'm.
We're definitely gonna have that on turrets. We're gonna have kind of like spotlights on a turret, so what you're aiming at, you can light up.
How long have I done this? Speaking of item 2.0, it's the next question. I'm just going top to bottom. Speaking of item 2.0, can you tell us more about how things are developing, changing, improving? Something interesting that impacts ships that we haven't already said.
Well, just one of the basic ones, because I also know from a lot of times flipping through different community streamers while they're playing the game, like, when this bug will get fixed on the ship. getting out of your ship and
I
having
swear,
it.
the new operating system is designed to not work with these older models.
That's one of those sort of simple ones that we
Still
actually
undecided about
use
whether to visit
is
Hurston
actually
or
getting
not.
back down
This is
once we
already
have
kind of...
because, like you're saying, the current setup now, if you aren't piloting your ship, and not just like, oh, I'm sitting in the co-pilot seat, it's like, no, are you in the pilot seat of your ship? Okay, cool, everything's powered on, everything has some level of awareness. You get hit, the ship will counter-correct and stop its own movement. You get out of the ship, it has none of that communication, it has none of that awareness of self. So once we have the item 2.0, it's like, all right, cool, now you're allowed to auto-stabilize again because your ship's IFCS, even when you're not in the pilot seat, it's going to say, hey, why am I spinning? I shouldn't be spinning. Thrusters, stop my spinning. And then you may come back and you've tilted from taking a hit or taking an impact. But it shouldn't just be spinning on its own and then pinball you out of nowhere if you approach the ship.
Many of them have been getting out long enough.
Oh yeah, the Freelancer is a comedic death trap. Yeah, you get that thing spinning on
I love
the
video
wall,
game
it's
physics.
awesome.
Those random things.
Probably I'm most excited. The thing that excites me the most that's happening right now is the upgrade to the turrets. And we've had a lot of problems with the turrets.
Thanks again, checking into that
Excited.
unknown reading.
Just saw Mark Abbott's new implementation. It's amazing. So I'm mostly excited about that. I've been helping him prototype a couple things.
Hey, you busy?
Well, beyond
I
that,
just got a call.
optimization the chips you can actually look better when we do item
Does not
2.0.
sound good.
And it may not be
Send you the
clear,
locations.
but
I think you should go try to help.
we optimize the ships by adding
don't have
LEDs to
to.
these ships.
You can do what
In
you want.
normal engine, LEDs switch at a constant rate of distance. But in our engine, we have a switching rate based on the smallest average poly size of the LED. So if you have a ship hull and it's got a little tiny poly in it, that LED is going to switch to the next lowest LED fast. So we spend a lot of time looking for these small poly. And then due to the old tech that we've been using, say to hook up the joysticks to a player and run IK, traditionally the joysticks have been part of the exterior of the ship. You haven't known that, but that's actually been a thing. So when we move the joysticks to Cockpit 2.0, that means the little LODs that are on these joysticks won't be influencing the LED switching of the entire ship, which means we get a better looking ship closer up as it switches. So it's going to be great.
Finally, some
And for
easy
anyone who might
pickings.
not know what LEDs are, the level of details, it's the difference between seeing every single poly of the ship when it's right up close and then watching smaller and progressively less detailed versions of it.
Yeah, modeling is ridiculous. Making the poly, the LED 1 will be 500,000, the LED 2 will be 200,000.
Trying to find a balance between like range and visual, loss. Like you're trying to make it so you don't see the top. You don't get to see the model change. That's a perfect world scenario in LED. But after a while, when you're really just supposed to have a certain poly count versus certain pixel space, you're like,
Doing all their own LED work, and we're just you could see some angle sometimes, and we wanted to these have a cleaner result.
and I'm going to mix a little bit.
Thread here. Do you know if damage holes in the hull?
That depends. Thing really. I mean, yes, technically you can see right through the ship, but
Like
what
if they mean a breach, like right now we're limiting breaches to airlocks and to turret off, and so you'll be able to like have some door gameplay where you airlock. But in the hull is really difficult. Not only the outer layers that you have to deal with, meshes, and in order to do that, and like I said, an example where we spawn some if I get to switch out a wall to have a hole in it that matches the exterior, but it's I mean,
there's a lot to think about.
If it was the only thing, but,
Yeah.
you know, considering everything has to play well with
Had you
everything,
chose to
there's
run,
always a resource
you did.
trade-off. And stuff like that. I mean, it's cool. It's definitely something.
When I'm doing the setup, I could definitely shoot through one side of the ship or the other. My goal is to actually stop that from happening, so you can actually going wrong. Right? So I'll tell the modelers, we need more damage bombs here, we need more guns here, because we should be able to shoot through there. You know what I mean? Like, but something has to stop me from seeing in. They also the environment over the outside world doesn't necessarily have to be on the inside. There's all sorts of object containers and things going on that don't blend. They're actually just straight up damage.
And we've mostly been working on small to medium ships to this point.
I thought that
As
was
soon as we
it
get
for
into
me.
the larger ships, that could
Thank
become something that we want to do.
I owe you for
But
this.
we'll have to plan it out very specifically. It can't just happen procedurally or organically.
All right, so let's see. We're getting a lot of questions about will you balance this ship more, will you balance that ship more. I think this is probably a good time to remind everybody that ship balance never, not in a massively multiplayer online game.
Yeah, I mean, balance is the best way to, I've always was taught to describe balance in any game is a constantly moving pendulum, and the best you can hope for is to shorten the swing arc, but you can never expect to stop the pendulum from moving.
Quantum travel.
And it always needs that back and forth, and also in that same analogy, something being in an alpha, that is when you should expect and should want to keep the swing arc as wide as possible, because that just means you're covering as much ground as possible, you're trying out as many different ideas as possible, you're iterating to really dial in on what is that appropriate range, so when you have the live product, what is your acceptable short swing arc of balance between, okay, this may be a bit more powerful now, but this can get bumped up later, but then that'll change something back, and you always have the back and forth, and it's just constraining that when it's appropriate to constrain it.
I think that's one of the things that can sometimes get lost for our project versus every other project out there. Because everybody else is playing every other game much farther down in its development, if not in its release, but in beta or in early access or whatnot. We are still so early in our development since we're lucky enough to have a live client, so we can have far more testers than just our internal QA team does. That affords us the opportunity to try crazier things with each patch, to try bumping the speeds way up this patch, to try pulling all the speeds back, taking out crews, putting crews in. It allows us that freedom to try all these different things. What we're doing today is not necessarily 100% representative of what there will be when that day comes, when we're launched, we're live kind of thing. But it's that thing that we want to test now at this point.
You test what you have when you haven't, and when you add something new, you retest it against everything else, and that's balance.
Try it out.
So that's one of the great advantages of this project, that everybody who plays it is a tester. It's important to never lose sight that there's Evocati and there's PTU and then there's live, but our live environment is still alpha environments. All Star Citizen environments are test environments, every single one. So we're going to try all of them. Next question: how will ship armor work? Will it be able to deflect a projectile depending on the impact angle?
Some of that's still being worked out, just in terms of how different pierceability things happen. Now, in terms of having it deflect and then go hit another ship and do damage,
Be amazing.
while it would be cool, that's a little bit more unlikely just because it's like, all right, now let's do all these extra bizarre real-time physics calculations based on angle of impact and angle of deflection.
Complete.
Like I would imagine Matt and Patrick would definitely be able to say better of, maybe if we could get some visual facsimile in terms of just how a shot could rebound off if it doesn't meet a pierceability value, but it still would probably lose any damage after that and then just hit a very short decay cycle before it just stops being a live round in the universe.
I had a bug on the Caterpillar where bullets would bounce off of it pretty well, actually. So
That was pretty funny.
yeah,
Actually,
I
and they
guess
would like slow down. They look like Star Wars lasers. And they just bounce off like that effect too. Was happening. Yeah.
Yeah, like all these like lightsabers, fly out. And they kind of get stuck too. They'd like,
Think if I were firing a missile at another ship, I would be thrilled if I actually did that good. But if I saw it bounce off,
That'd be funny with the missile. I know, I think it can happen right now in Caterpillar, the through and through shot, where if you are good enough and you've got someone targeted just right, you can launch a missile through the open double doors on both sides of the Caterpillar.
when we were passing videos around, watching the crazy things people were doing
Yeah.
through the center of the Caterpillar. There were even a couple moments.
Landing gear up.
But it's neat to see. It's like, okay, no, it's this guy's system, probably playing with the work that Matt, this person did and whatnot. I guess that's what's making it able. And that's one of the best things about this. We're truly making a sandbox game, where we're just making the tools. We're putting the tools out there and then seeing what you guys do with it. It's awesome when we're surprised when we see something we didn't anticipate.
I love seeing like trying to get stuck in the room or whatever on the Caterpillar or the Constellation. It's
What do you
hilarious.
have to knock off this ship to make it fit? I even remember seeing one where someone was like, I made the Buccaneer fit in the nose section of the Caterpillar, and then when they actually go to the image, oh yeah, it's like they made it fit by shearing off the entire right engine, both wings, and just had the debris parts shoved in.
sideways.
Pieces can break
And
off
it's
as
like
possible.
tucked in, both tail flaps gone, and it's like, all right, it fit.
I love that stuff.
We got time for one more question. We have heard a lot of talk about the optimization of lights on the ship. Does making lighting more efficient free up room to add other cool visuals?
Like, what other cool visuals?
We do
I would
everything
think-
cool we can think of, and then we bring ourselves back into a range.
I mean, there's PFX,
At least I do.
I think almost the idea of
EV2s.
optimizing enough where we could have another cool ship in the same scene at that
That's the
same
thing, right?
level
Like-
of fidelity and detailing, like getting us to the point where we can do these bigger battles where, hey, if we can get to the cap ship versus cap ship, or we're having to pare down.
Mayday! Mayday! We're under attack. Please help.
Both of them existing in that same screen space. at the
If
same
you know
time,
what's good for you, you'll stay
flying
out of
between
this.
that same fight. There's just
Yeah, for lighting specifically, I think we're going to have these more interesting startup animations, so the back lights will come on. So it'll be kind of this orchestrated way instead of everything just kind of coming on like a window,
Helping like you did.
kind of thing. It's going to be more, it's a more staggered thing.
saved my life.
But one of the cool things, and I don't know what made me think of this, but it's totally not related, is I want to, we're going to look into sub-component targeting, and I'm hoping we'll get this kind of X-ray view where you'll see the interior components, and it's still being designed with planning first. It's nice to pick apart.
Even if you didn't know it, that would be a benefit to people.
I heard what happened with that last distress call.
Yeah, you take it upon yourself to learn the interior layout of as many ships as possible, so you know where the components are physically on that constellation or on that javelin or whatever. So you know your own personal knowledge to save the ship.
Absolutely.
Yeah, doing that light work should definitely yield you an advantage because it's like put the time into it. There should definitely be a reward for those kinds of things.
And we've talked about different scanners, and we'll probably upgrade scanners, and the best scanner in the world will be able to look really into the ship and pick it apart, and you'll find like the resources that you can harvest. But the basic scanner is just going to be ship. You know, like can't see anything.
The best scanner can see the crew's on the back.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, that about does it for this edition of the Happy Hour interview. Is there anything you want to say to the Star Citizen community before we let you go?
Thanks for supporting us.
Yeah, guys, thanks.
So I like talking to everybody on Reddit and Facebook and Twitch and in Spectrum. So thank you for being cool people and great community. I always have fun.
All right, well, there was a sentiment that was passed on here. This is not a question. It says we're all doing incredible work. It seems the ship pipeline has really been
Got something for you. Drop whatever you're doing. 2 words. Distress bacon.
So for Happy Hour interview, thank you to Matt, thank you to Matt, thank you to Pat, thank you to Tyler Wicked for helping me out so I didn't have to look at this thing the entire time and pick any questions to feed them to me. It's so good, so thank you to everybody involved. We'll see you next week, everybody.
See you next.
Quantum drive is now on. Quantum drive is now on. Quantum drive is now off.
Hello and welcome to some more Star Citizen. Today we're going to go over the 2.6.2 patch notes in a bit more detail.